Welcome to the Wednesday, April 17th, 2024 Conservation Commission meeting. The Wareham Conservation Commission will hold a meeting under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Town of Wareham Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Division 6, and any other applicable laws on Wednesday, April 17th, 2024 at 6 p.m. All matters listed may involve a decision and possible vote. All hearings of the Wareham Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and the Town of Wareham Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Division 6. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. We'll do roll call. Joe, starting with you, please.
Joseph Still.
Paula Jean O'Neill.
Autumn Wood.
Carol Melanson.
Sandy Slavin.
My body.
Michael Mercier.
Denise Schultz.
And Joshua Faraday.
I mean, did I miss somebody? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. And Carol, Joe, and Denise.
You have to check to see if Jessica's on.
They're checking for me. They will let me know if Jessica comes in. All right, if you go with the first, Kwame, the first hearing, please. Is Anthony, she's here.
Oh, you want me to read? I'm sorry.
No, Carol reads. So,
I'm like,
I was like, folks,
like, oh, okay.
I apologize.
It's like, wait a minute.
This is a notice of intent for Anthony Frangiadis, 2 Arbutus Avenue, Wareham, Mass. 02571. For demolition of an existing dwelling. A new dwelling will be constructed in the same location on the lot. A new paved driveway will be installed on the east side of the property. Runoff from the roof and driveway will be directed to the leaching catch basin. Selective clearing is requested for a 5-foot wide path to Broad Cove. Map 11, Lot K20, 2 Arbutus Ave, Wareham, Mass.
And who is here representing this project, please?
Bill Madden from GAF Engineering.
And I'm Anthony Frangiadis, the property owner.
Okay, Bill, you're up.
Oh, us first?
Yes. Josh changed things. You get up first, and then,
I haven't been around long enough.
I don't know, Josh has been here how many months now? Yes, you're up first.
Okay. This is basically a tear down and rebuild. There's an existing structure located on the lot.
Barely,
Barely on the lot or barely a structure?
barely a structure.
Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, sir.
No, that's all right. So we're going to demolish the existing structure, provide new access off of Barrett Way, and construct a new dwelling on that lot, and essentially the same footprint. It's a little larger than the existing structure that was there, but in an effort to comply with zoning setbacks and what have you, we've relocated the building a little bit on the lot for that real reason and purpose. So we've increased the side yard setbacks by a few feet and what have you, and created a little more front yard setback. New utilities will go in. There'll be a new water service, the existing sewer service that's on the lot, We're just showing that we're going to retain that service, but remove most of the piping that exists there and show a new connection to the existing service connection from Barrett Way. So-
I could not find a stub, but I couldn't find the lateral, but that's another topic. Okay.
The lateral, yeah.
They don't like when I bring up sewer.
Well, we're not bringing it up, we're talking about a site activity.
Yeah.
So it's in the buffer, that's in the buffer zone to the resource area. So those materials will be removed from the site and they'll put in new service when the building's constructed. A new driveway will be put in there, and all the roof runoff and the driveway runoff will be piped into a dry well that's shown on the east side of the property. And pretty much it, straightforward, two-car garage under, the living space is above, and we also have shown a meandering 5-foot wide pathway down the coastal bank to the beach area. And we've just indicated as meandering so that in the event that it would be approved, that we'd just be not removing mature and large trees and trying to work the pathway through the shrub layer that exists.
And that's down the paper road.
And it's in the footprint of the paper street.
Thank you.
Arborist.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. I don't know if Anthony has anything to add to it.
No, I've also applied to the zoning board of appeals for a special permit, so we're just going through permitting right now.
All right. Questions on the board? I'll start with Paula Jean.
I went over there and looked at the property, and I was just curious how much larger the new house is than the existing footprint.
It's actually not larger.
Oh, it isn't?
I was going to correct Bill.
Okay.
It's meant to be the same rectangular square, or, I can't see it, I'm looking at the small ones.
What, you looking for the other one?
No, the footprint.
The
So,
dimensions aren't shown on the existing conditions plan.
So on the other question I had is on the side of the building that faces the steep bank down to the cove,
Yes.
the stakes say property line along there, and I
Yes.
thought if that's where the property line ends, whose property would your meandering path go through? Down to the water, or do you have the property to the water? That was,
I do not have the property to the south. The meandering path is intended to go down Arbutus Ave, which is the
Which is the
paper
paper
street.
road.
okay.
It's not,
And that's-
I'm just figuring out the paper road
And
piece.
to the south, the Gleasons own that property, who are here if you have any
Oh,
questions.
okay, that was what I thought, well then, how can you, you know?
Yeah, no, we're not crossing
Right,
that
and it wasn't
property.
staked out,
So
the
part-
path wasn't staked or indicated, I couldn't see anything at the property to indicate where you were going to put the path, so I was concerned about the trees, although a lot of them are scrub pine and white
Mm-hmm.
pines.
It's difficult to navigate at the moment,
Uh-huh,
Arbutus, because of the amount of items that are stored there.
yes.
okay. And you've got some fabulous rhododendrons in the
We
front
do.
and in back, hopefully you're gonna try to save those guys,
I've
right?
been, yes, I've been working at that. I've actually moved a few of them. I currently live diagonally across the street.
Okay, I saw that house.
So we have been planting them a little bit at a time. So we'll do
Okay.
our best with the
And that-
ones in the back.
Yeah,
the
and
ones
that
you're
nice
familiar-
holly you have beside the building as well, you have a nice holly
Oh, I don't know the
Yeah.
holly, but we'll. yeah.
towards where the boat is, next door.
It's
Yeah,
probably,
that's the area that's difficult to navigate, the paper street.
Uh-huh, okay,
So
so
the-
that's a paper street, it goes perpendicular to the Barrett Way?
yes.
All right.
And it goes down to the cove.
I see.
Mr. Faraday and I met on site with Bob Rogers from GAF, and we did walk down. I thought Bob had placed some flags
I didn't see any.
for
I
that.
should have found at least a flag at the top of the paper road and one at the very end towards the beach.
Okay, so I didn't go down
Yeah,
the
that would
bottom
have
of the
been, that
hill.
would have
and
been
we-
difficult
I
to,
was mostly on the other side of the house where it's flagged and staked.
sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Autumn.
Thank you. My question is also for that meandering pathway. I believe it's a 3-foot wide if we're gonna give access to the waterway. Is that,
Only if it's a raised.
Josh?
I think our bylaw says 5-foot wide naturally vegetated path with a 3-foot wide boardwalk or structure within that. So
Okay.
a 5-foot wide path is appropriate.
so this is just intended to be just natural, a footpath?
Yes.
No additional footing?
One of the benefits of purchasing this property back in 2017 is that this particular lot has deeded beach rights along the roads shown in the original subdivision plan, which my house across the street does not have that same opportunity.
I gotcha, perfect,
So-
thank you. Thank you, that was my only question, I appreciate it.
Carol?
No questions, thank you.
Kwame?
Yeah, so, nice piece of property. Thanks for staking. That was nice. But, so the leaching field is going to be next to the driveway? Is that where you had it originally, or?
Well, it's a dry well.
Oh, dry well. I thought it said leaching
Well,
area.
it's a leaching pit.
Oh, a
you know.
leaching pit, okay, okay.
We're on town sewer, though, so no septic system.
That's right, that's right. I just, when I saw the stake, I was like, wait a minute, leaching field, or? So that was a dry well. Okay, I got you.
Yes, and thank you for always watching out for our stormwater collection off of our roof lines. A lot of people have come back because they didn't include them, and you included them. Thank you. Yes, you're learning on us.
Well, no, it needs to be done.
Michael?
Just a couple of questions here. First of all, the driveway that's going to be put onto the property, is that going to be an impervious or impervious surface?
It'll be impervious.
I'm sorry, impervious?
Impervious, yes.
Okay. Right, so I guess secondly is where, it's the road seems to end right there, and I guess afterwards there's a walking path or whatever going further along. Where's all the construction equipment going to be stored?
The construction equipment
Equipment's
associated with our
going to be
project will be stored on this lot.
on site?
Yes,
So it'll be stored on there even at nights
yes.
when everything's not done afterwards? Okay. All right, I guess those are the only two questions that I had then.
And if you prefer to ensure that that happens vis-à-vis a condition, we have no objection to that.
I also have a very long driveway, so, across the street, so we could pull a vehicle into my driveway. It's just my one vehicle.
All right, okay, that's fine then, thank you.
Joe, questions?
So that paper road on Arbutus, or am I saying that right? Arbutus?
Arbutus.
Okay, Arborus. That's actually accessible? You can go all the way down that hill? All the way to the water?
It's laid out to go down to the water.
It does not exist, only on
It's not
paper.
constructed. That's
Gotcha.
why we
It's-
call it paper
right.
street.
It's vegetated, and my neighbor across the street is currently storing
Everything.
a number of items in that paper street.
Gotcha. Yeah, I saw the
So-
boat there and then the two
Yes.
trucks out front. And now you said you had deeded rights to the other property with the Gleasons, right? That
No,
go
this particular lot
as deeded beach
has
rights?
deeded beach rights to the,
Okay,
to
to
the water
Broad Code
along-
itself, or?
so I don't know if you want to take a look at this. I brought the original subdivision.
Oh,
plan.
map 11.
Yes, so if you want to take a look at that.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else wants.
Please. Thank you.
Because there are two paper streets, one along the water that does not exist either.
Right, that one I believe might be underwater.
Well, I put it this way, there's a lot of boats stored on it at the little further.
So from Barrett Way, it's 200 feet east to Beach Street, which is another paper
Yep.
street, and then the Cove. And when we surveyed it, I think it was on this one. We had gone down Arbutus Ave. I don't know if we ever quite located Beach Street.
Beach
It'd be
Street's
100,
all,
it'd be down further. So it's
Yeah.
200 feet from Barrett Way is Beach Street, which I believe is also the Cove.
Okay, Denise? Oh, sorry.
I was just trying to figure this out. I was trying to figure out where exactly the paper road was. The paper road is the Myrtle Road?
No, Myrtle Street was renamed to Barrett Way, and that's a
Okay.
town-accepted
All right.
public street.
This is Barrett, this is the way you came in.
Yeah.
This is the paper, or the gravel road that's past her property.
Okay.
This is Arbutus, where she wants to put the meandering path.
All of the streets
Okay.
shown on this subdivision
it.
plan are paper streets with the exception of Myrtle Street, which is now Barrett Way. And it stops the town right away.
Just about where you're going to put your driveway.
Yes, and someone in the past had paved a little further than what the town had paved. And then we're gonna be turning into the lot. It's actually, when you can traverse Barrett Way to the end, a lot of vehicles will use this lot to turn around, but sometimes you're not able to get there either.
So you don't own those trucks that are sitting out?
No,
What is going to happen with those?
That's not part of our discussion. We're outside of the 100-foot line. That's something to do with building inspecting, and
Well, how is she going to get to her property?
that's up to
So
her.
I have asked the neighbor, or I've made the neighbor aware that I would be filing for permits and that I want to take the structure down because it's becoming more and more unsafe. So he indicated that I should just let him know when the construction vehicles are coming and
Okay.
he would clear it. So I did have a conversation with Mr. Carnes.
Okay. Now, it says a garage slab.
Yes.
So you're going to put a slab to park under the house. How high will the house be?
The elevation is, I can't see the small plan.
I know, I need to get my
It's
glasses on.
33.25. 33.
So the garage
It's
slab is at 30.
Flush. It's flush
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the existing grade.
And the
But
finished floor elevation of the house is 43.25, so it's 10-foot.
Okay, so it's a 10
From floor to floor.
a 10-foot space for your garage
Yes.
under the house?
Yes.
Okay, and that's because you want a garage and there's no other space to put it. It certainly isn't because it's in a flood zone or it's so up
No,
high
it's
up on the
not-
hill.
it's not-
No.
it's not
So
elevated
it's your
for that.
decision to have it high in order to have the garage. So
Yes,
you will
on a
be
small lot.
really paving underneath the existing, where the existing structure is. Paving, sorry, concrete
Yes, that
slab.
will be the new foundation.
Okay,
The existing structure is on tree logs.
yes, it is.
There is no concrete foundation.
How old is the house?
1910, I believe, is what
I'm
the...
sure you're going to go to Historic Commission.
Yes, that's
for-
another stop.
Okay.
So,
You're barely within our jurisdiction. You're at the edge of the 100-foot buffer from the top zone, right? Just one corner of the house, or we wouldn't be having this hearing, right, Josh? Other than the walkway and the path. Yeah. Okay. Anybody in the audience or online like to comment on this project? I'm hearing none, and no Jessica? Okay, so I have no voting member on Zoom, so I will take a roll call here. I will not take a roll call. Yes, please try to save that rhododendron that's in the back of the house, and I think most of it happens to be on the Gleason property.
it does.
But it will be very nice and very soon, yes.
Oh, and I work with them as well in terms of that.
Yeah, it's tight,
The southern property line is tight in general, so,
yes.
just for excavation.
Okay, nothing else?
I motion to close the hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the hearing. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 600. The hearing is closed. Josh, sorry. I shouldn't have closed the hearing until I asked for Josh's comments. Sorry.
Make a motion to issue a standard order of conditions, and I'll just give my recommendation in your discussion.
Okay.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, discussion. Or
Okay.
no, someone needs to second.
Second for discussion.
Okay.
Okay, now we have our discussion. I'll get it. All right.
I have no comments other than that the path be maintained to 5 feet, and that you don't remove any mature trees.
That's the motion, and that's the comments, and
Motion to approve the project with standard order of conditions, with the one exception of no mature trees be removed, and that the path be maintained at 5 feet.
Second?
now, okay.
I beat you to it, I guess.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. 600, we have it, thank you. And I apologize, folks, I'm going to get my head in the game here.
Did you bring mine with you? Bring mine in with you?
Thank you.
So no work until you get all the paperwork from Josh, okay?
And
You got a lot ahead,
BA and historic, and
you got a lot ahead of you.
we'll get the paperwork. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
I guess I don't, we'll give these to Josh. For the file.
Okay. Next one, please.
Okay, I forgot to read the notice of public hearing thing. Should I read that now?
Yeah, I'll read it now, just so we have it at least once in our hearings.
Okay, pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetlands Protective Bylaw, Division 6, a public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., on Wednesday, April 17th, 2024, at 6 p.m. On the request for notice of intent for Continental Marine Corporation, 3236 Cranberry Highway, Wareham, Mass. 02571, to replace a deteriorated wood bulkhead with a vinyl sheet pile bulkhead. Sheet piles will be vibrated or driven into the ground. An existing concrete boat ramp will be removed, the area filled and paved, added to match adjacent areas. A wood timber guardrail will be installed. Portions of the parking lot adjacent to the bulkhead will be repaved. Map 6, Lot 6 through 10, 3236 Cranberry Highway, Wareham, Mass.
And who is here representing this project?
Bill Madden from GAF Engineering here on behalf of Continental Marina Corp.
Your turn.
My turn again. Okay. You probably all recall from the site inspection, the condition of that bulkhead that's at the end of the parking lot, just where the marina begins. It's pretty well deteriorated and what have you, and it seems to have been some of the material that's under the parking lot's migrated out onto the beach and what have you. It's just in poor condition. All the drainage from I guess the south side of the site in maybe even a portion of Cranberry Highway drained completely across this paved parking lot and discharged and mitigated into Buttermilk Bay. So that leads to a little of the failure of that bulkhead, where the current one that you see out there is wood. It's rotted. There's pieces of marine plywood that are used there instead of the proper material to hold back the soil. So I've been talking with Frank Harrington and Al at Continental Marine for quite a while about this project, and now they've decided to take it forward and just, build a new bulkhead that will have some longevity to it. So we designed a sheet vinyl bulkhead for the site, which would be driven. The sheet piles will be driven in front of the existing wood structure that's there, and that'll form the perimeter, the front side of that parking lot. As you go over to the east side, there's that concrete boat ramp that's there. You see the disrepair that is also in. That's in pretty poor shape. They don't happen to use it. They used to use that to grab some of the floating docks and float them over to the ramp and pull them up on a trailer. Now they're we're proposing to fill that in, to put that bulkhead across the face of the boat ramp and construct the bulkhead in the same position as the bulkhead, remove all those slabs out of there, refill it and pave it the same elevation as the parking lot. We're pitching it so that the drainage will come back to the existing catch basin that's on the site, and there's an outlet for that, a pre-existing outlet for that drainage catch basin that's shown on the easterlymost property line. So that's the bulk of the project right now. After we filed the plan, when I was talking to the Harringtons, our detail calls for some sand material to be infilled between the old sheet piles and the new sheet piles, just to occupy that void space with some material. And they want to entertain the thought about doing some very minor maintenance dredging around the slips from A and B and C dock that are closest to the shoreline. I don't know what the tide was when you were out there, but if you were there at a lower tide, you might have seen the sediment that's accumulated at the end of those boat slips adjacent to the dock. So the thought was, if we were able to do some maintenance dredging under 100 cubic yards and use that material as our backfill material behind the bulkhead, that would make good use of the dredge spoils and not require the need to import more material into the site. So that's one thing that I think we did not include that in the notice. And I guess I need to speak with Josh and the commission to figure out how we can add that. We'd like to make it part of this filing. I don't know what mechanism we would use to get it in there, other than modify the plan and submit a revised plan in a revised notice indicating the resource area that we're gonna be doing some dredging in, which is not noted on this plan, and what the disposition of those dredge spoils would be. So that's one thing that I'm asking the commission to entertain a discussion on, and perhaps give us some direction as to the proper way to move it forward. But that's pretty much it. We're not raising the elevation of the parking lot substantially. It will be raised a little bit. Right now, there's that stone between the bulkhead and the bituminous surface. So we'll be putting that back in place, pretty much everything the way you see it. There's no desire to reshape the parking lot. There's a little bit of an elevated landform up and over by the building that doesn't blend like you might see in a plaza on this site. But there may be at some time a plan to come forward and just repave that surface. But at this point, with this project, we're not intending to do that. So that's what we'd like to do with that. We did receive a letter from Division of Marine Fisheries today. They had some comments. Most of the comments that they had were not problematic. They did have a couple of time of year restrictions due to horseshoe crab and winter flounder.
Josh, do you have that? Okay.
So, we don't see any issue with the comments from Division of Marine Fisheries.
Do you think they might change if they know you're going to do some dredging?
They may. I don't know if they will, where they're taking the two species that are in some type of spawning period. And they're addressing that now, and I think those might be the only ones, but I wouldn't say no. They may require relocation of some shellfish out of there, which would not be uncommon.
Okay.
So I would say it's likely that they might add another comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Paula Jean, questions?
Okay, that adds to the end of my list. You want to have a wood timber guardrail on there, and I wondered about the material. I think there's a type of timber now that's not pressure treated, that isn't going to leach anything that is harmful. I'm not sure the name of it or what the chemical is, but I'm sure there's such a thing. Will it be made of that type of material rather than a creosote or a pressure-treated arsenic?
Well, it wasn't going to be creosoted, and
Yeah.
it might be pressure-treated. I think your regulations speak to pressure-treated wood that's installed in the water.
It's going to be right next to the water.
Well, I think it's going to be a little bit above it if we look at where the mean low,
Yeah, up at the
Low
edge of the parking lot, right?
yes.
Yeah.
So it's a few feet away, but mean high tide does get
Yeah.
pretty close. So we'll look at what else.
Rain will leach it, right?
Well, they claim it, that does happen, and the degree of leaching is what really comes up with that material. But we can specify a southern yellow pine with a proper treatment.
That would be great.
Which is what we would do.
Okay, that was one thing I noticed. I've actually looked at the site twice and walked around. The first thing that really caught my eye is there's so much debris and trash. If you walk down the boat ramp and you look to the right at the stones that are along the shoreline, there's cinder blocks, and there's a big pile of there are plastic items, plastic debris, and a big pile of smashed up tile, and I don't know how to recognize asbestos tile, but that came into my mind. It looks like it's been dumped there for a while, and no one hasn't bothered anybody at that end. I hate to see that get buried, or I think that should all be cleaned up and removed before this goes forward. Just a lot of accumulated litter and trash over by the dumpsters. There's an old bicycle piled in with a bunch of, you know.
There's
a lot of neglected-
things over there that are consistent with waterfront.
Right, and so I felt like, okay, they're asking us for this, so we see it, and I'd like to see it removed. Even under the deck outside of the restaurant, underneath, there's all sort of paper and trash and litter, and I thought if you're gonna be working there, it could very easily just go into the water and not be cleaned up. So I'd like to see that it's all cleaned up first before this happens, so it doesn't get mixed in.
That's fine, and, you know, if you were so inclined to put a condition together along those
Yeah.
lines, I see nothing wrong with that. That gets rid of things that need to be removed from the site.
And especially if that tile or the glue that's stuck on all the broken pieces of tile has anything asbestos-like, I think that's really important to have it out of there. When you mentioned the dredging, because that was not in what I had written here, first thing I thought of was the shellfish study, so you've already done that, but we all have horseshoe crabs in the forefront of our minds now because everyone is realizing how endangered they are and how important they are. And if that's specifically one of the species living there, I would like to be sure that measures are taken to protect it.
No, and I think that when you get the opportunity to review that letter from Division of Marine Fisheries, you'll see that they're recommending some siltation barriers in the water and what have you to kind of define the work area and whatnot. And as I said before, there's nothing there that's problematic in our mind. They're all good practices to employ with a construction project.
I'm glad you feel that way. Thank you.
Autumn.
Thank you. Could you please clarify if a shellfish study was conducted or has it not been?
We have not done a shellfish survey.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Carol.
No questions at this time.
Kwame.
I think it's a very important project because the bulkhead is deteriorating. And also, that broken pipe next to where that catch basin is, I think that's owned by MassDOT, right? Am I mistaken? That big, huge broken pipe. Next, you know what I'm talking about?
I know there's two pieces of pipe down there. One has a flared end on it, the other one doesn't. And
Right.
I'm not certain if that one comes from Mass Highway or not. I don't remember seeing an easement for the benefit of Mass Highway across the lot, but that doesn't mean that they don't have a pipe there.
Okay.
So
But isn't
what's
that
the
like a...
concern with the pipe?
There's no really concern. I just know it was broken, you know. But I think that's the biggest issue going on, where all that material is floating in.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean, yeah.
But I think that's more of a MassDOT issue. But I think it's a good project, and I'm not opposed to the dredging.
Michael.
Just a couple of things there. The time of year was one of the thoughts I had in my mind. I obviously didn't get a chance to see this letter. I just heard of it now. If you don't mind me asking, I'll jump ahead a little bit, what time of year are they most likely saying we should hold the project to?
Oh, Division of Marine Fisheries? It's like, let's say, from January 1st till the end of May, where those are that was what I recall, the restricted time. I'll look and I'll tell you. January 15th to May 31st on the, it's for in-water activities
Sure.
that they're talking about there. No in-water silt producing activities, and that's for, let's see, that's the winter flounder.
Okay.
Time of year restriction. And then the time of year restriction for the horseshoe crab is May 1st through July 31st of any year. So really, it's kind of off limits, I would say, between January 15th and May 31st. I'm sorry, July 31st of
July
any year.
31st, okay.
So I would think that the construction would occur
during cooler months?
In the fall, only because they're a seasonal restaurant, they're not, they'll close in October. So then they'd be able to respect that time of year construction restriction and have ample time to do the project.
Certainly.
3 months?
No,
October, November, December, mid-January? No? Okay, sorry.
And then the other question I had too is also speaking of time, I assume work would only be done during, like, I guess during low tide, I guess, or, 'cause I've only seen the site during low tide, I guess. I haven't seen it during high tide, so I don't know how high the water gets. But I imagine low tide would be the more appropriate time to do this project?
yeah, and even with respect to the sheets, when they drive those sheets, they'll be able to drive those sheets from the parking lot. So all that material will be able to be delivered, stored, staged in the parking lot, and driven from that side, not the water side. Dredging, on the other hand, depending upon the time of, the timing of that dredging material and the equipment that they use, they might use a mini excavator mounted to a barge, and you just want to make sure that the time of that activity doesn't, that the time of that activity doesn't, what was I thinking before I started showing?
Occurs at high tide, so it doesn't, occurs around high tide.
Yeah.
So you don't want to bottom out
We
your
don't
platform.
want the barge to bottom out, right?
Yes.
They made some specific notations about that as well.
All right, okay, thank you.
Denise?
If you're wanting to add dredging, I think the Division of Marine Fisheries needs to have some input into their thoughts on that. If you're adding something, they should have the ability to comment on it. I haven't seen the letter that you have. Also, the gentleman, when I was speaking with him, who owns the building, Captain Al, I guess, he said that he wanted to keep the option of adding the, what do you call it, boat ramp back if he sold the place, and the new owner wanted to put the boat ramp back. How is that achieved?
That has not been, I haven't talked to anybody about that. I would think that once you take it away, it becomes a real difficult task to reinstall it.
Okay, is that true?
They would have to come before us with a notice of intent to do it.
Put a
and-
boat ramp in. He
yeah.
can't just say there was a boat ramp there and you can put it back in again? Okay, all right. Yeah, it just,
I mean, it was licensed, the boat ramp did have a Chapter 91 license.
license to it, but
with
once you get rid of it,
You would think now that that plan's gonna get modified with this plan, and it'd be the most recent plan of record
right,
with
so chapter
Division of
91 will
Waterways.
come into effect then.
I think once they get rid of it, they would have to reapply
Okay,
the Chapter
all right.
91.
Yeah, my,
Because they would be doing substantial work to the Chapter 91 license again
okay,
by modifying the seawall.
all right.
Would you agree with that, Mr. Madden?
Yeah, no, I would, yeah.
Yeah,
I-
I think it would be a process for them to
To
reinstall
reinstall
a
it,
boat
okay.
ramp.
Yeah, and we were talking with them about operationally, how that corner would now function without the boat ramp. Like I said, but previously, they would drive down the boat ramp with a little
Correct.
tractor and pull up their floating docks.
Yeah, I saw
Now
the
they're-
floating docks are at the top.
Yeah, and now they're just gonna, pick them up with a fork truck or something from the landward side and reach down to the water level to something that's floating there and lift it up and place it on the parking lot.
Okay, but again, my thought is that if you want to dredge, that we need to get input then from the Division of Marine Fisheries as to
We'd be obligated to send them an updated plan, revised plan with that change on it for their comments.
yeah,
And we would want to see an amended notice of intent just for the work being in the resource area.
correct.
So,
Anything else? Joe, anything?
No questions for me.
Okay, my turn. So I was looking at, there will no longer be any type of boat ramp at this site. So all the boats would have to go to someplace else to be put in and taken out.
They didn't use that boat ramp to put boats in and boats out.
No, but the other one on the west side, there had been one a while ago.
When they had the blue building that blew down in the
Yep,
storm, that's where they used to place the boats inside. that
Before
were
they put them up on the racks,
storage,
yeah.
And then they would use that, like marine railway.
Yeah,
that
and-
exists there, and that's where those boats,
And that marine roadway was removed at the last time they did a project at this site, correct?
I don't believe it has been. I believe that railway, I believe we didn't want to remove that because.
Oh, I thought it was, I didn't see it.
Well, that's away from the project area.
No, but I walked the whole project.
I'm pretty sure it's still there, may
Okay.
not be.
All right,
I
well,
thought it was
anyway,
still there.
so the idea is that, as Denise said, once you remove this very broken up boat ramp, it's going to be hard to get one back in without coming to us with a lot of paperwork. Okay, and we talked about a shellfish study will now be needed if you want to dredge. And so we know what is in that area. You want to remove the sand in order to use it to backfill your new bulkheads. How much further out into the sand will you be going with these bulkhead, the sheet file bulkhead? I'm looking at the plans on the page 2, and I'm not quite determining on how much further out into the sand you're going to go in order to place these bulkheads.
Well, there is no dimension in there to do that. I mean, to show what that spacing is. Obviously, we want to try to keep it as tight to the
As tight.
existing bulkhead as we can. And in order to drive the sheets straight, they have to establish what they call false work, is a framework that the sheets are driven in to keep them, perfectly straight. So that's going to end up being, I would say, probably 6 inches off the face of the existing bulkhead is where that would start. So that space would probably be about 6 to 8 inches in width.
Do they think they're going to find any rocks and boulders where they're going to want to put this bulkhead? They have any idea what might be found when they try to drive this thing?
They didn't have any issues with any of the piles they did when they rebuilt the docks. Granted, that's out in the water, but, my recollection is anything like when we replaced the fuel oil tank, remember they had a leaky fuel oil tank a number of years ago in that parking lot? And that had to be removed, and when that was excavated and all the soil around it was opened up, it was all sand.
So
coarse
we
sand.
didn't see any glacier
envision-
rocks located in that site,
I don't envision that we would encounter any.
Okay.
Sandy, there are some boulders actually.
Well, they put the boulders there.
Holding up the
Yeah,
wall.
that's the boulders on top. They're going to remove them, and after the piling, they're going to put them back, but I was looking at what's underneath the surface.
I guess then my question would be, is you've got this boulder that's holding up the wall, how are you going to drive something in? You're going to remove the boulder and that's not going to fall down?
It won't be done, it shouldn't be done, weeks in advance of driving the sheets. I mean, they should have
Move the boulder, drive it right
a
in.
schedule and a plan that indicates to everybody how they're going to undertake that work.
Right, because there's all that rock underneath that'll just slide down and go into the water if that happens.
Right, but there's a series of bulkheads that existed. I think there's 2 additional ones that are there. So even behind that one that's failing right now, there's another bulkhead behind that. So each time that a new structure's been added, it's been added in front of the prior.
Fire away.
So there is still something there that does help work in retaining that soil. I don't know if I'd want to bet my life on it.
Yeah.
But it does help the situation.
Okay, and then he was talking about at the other end, they have a dock area or a sitting area, that the bulkhead was going to be under it, but flush with the rest of the bulkhead?
Yeah.
And then that is just still going to stick out over the top of it? The seating area that they have out there?
It's not intended to stay, it's intended to be the same level underneath that deck,
So the deck is going to stay, but the bulkhead's going to be...
underneath it.
Yeah, okay.
So they'll have to do some work on the deck. There's going to be an area there that will require to be disassembled and then reassembled once the the sheets are in. I mean,
Right, so then I'm wondering if that should have been included in the plan also, the rebuild of that deck.
Yeah, but it's above ground.
But if the poles or posts for it go into the beach, that's,
But it's nothing new being added.
doesn't it still have to be included in the plan? I mean, they're not talking about rebuilding the deck. The deck is gonna, is it coming off and they're gonna redo it, or?
I guess we're asking it, how will they accommodate the piles when they're going to be placed under the existing walkways and deck?
It's not really spelled out in the notice of intent, but the plan does call to replace the deck sonotubes as required.
Okay,
So, I
Does
guess with
that-
being said.
is that, Denise, does that,
Yes.
okay. By the time you read this, it's so tiny, I'm not sure I can read everything that,
and
okay?
that they're gonna remove
Anything
the-
else on, so Josh, your comments?
Out of curiosity, what is the projected lifespan of the sheet piles? We've had quite a few projects with them in Wareham now, and I'm just wondering, they're fairly new technology, I'd say. Have we seen any issues with them failing in other communities?
I personally have not seen any issue with the vinyl sheet piles.
Yeah.
I've seen a few of the other composite things not hold up as well as I would have expected them to. But I don't know, I gotta think it's 75, 100-year type of thing with them. I mean, it's like solar. I mean, how long do
Yeah.
those panels last? You just they haven't been around long enough for us to really assess. But the manufacturer, I think, states it's got quite a bit of longevity, but I can't be certain of what the timeline is.
I think it'll be interesting to see moving forward, because if these things, do end up, and I don't know this for a fact, I'm just speaking out loud here, if they do end up lasting, 10 years, when's the next project to install a vinyl sheet pile in front of this one? Just thinking out loud, has nothing to do with your project, I suppose. I'll speak to the Mass DMF letter very briefly, but I think our order of conditions should basically just reflect the Mass DMF letter. So a few of the stipulations that they have in it, there are 2 time-of-year restrictions, one being for the flounder from January 15th to May 31st. However, they do note that that can be extended through January 15th to April 30th if there's a silt curtain installed around the entire proposed construction area. So I'll just make a note of that. The time of year restriction for the horseshoe crabs is May 1st to July 31st. I don't believe you're actually proposing to remove any piles within the water, but if you were to be, they should be fully removed and not just cut at the base of the pile. Again, the construction barge should only be used at a tide that would prevent it from grounding. This goes into speaking about the construction activity, including staging of construction materials and equipment, as well as the equipment transit to and from the construction site should avoid intertidal habitat, which is not going to be a problem for this work. If there's any concrete to be used, you should avoid washing out the truck on site. And if there's any fuel spills, they should be addressed quickly, and any refueling should be done off-site. If you want to talk about the dredging now, I guess my question would be, would the material have to be dried out before you use it behind the sheet piles?
I would have to look into that. I don't know. I mean, I don't see why it should be dried out, but, you know, there's a chemical analysis that needs to be done, make sure there's no contaminants. If it was
Right.
contaminated material, you know, we wouldn't want to put it, we wouldn't want to reuse that, I don't think.
Right, I almost see you taking the spoils of the dredging, staging them to get tested, and then, you know, maybe we address whether it's appropriate to put them behind the sheet piles or not. At that point, I would almost say maybe it's just easier to use clean fill, but,
I think it might be, as you suggest, and even like to drain that material out. Sometimes in tight quarters, I've seen them excavate and put right into dumpsters, and then would leave the dumpsters on the site. They'd line the dumpsters with like geotextile fabric, dump the material in there, let it drain out, the water drain out.
Right.
But then there's, you know,
Then it contains shellfish.
well, hopefully that was all, those are all removed, and
So-
transplanted and relayed before we do any dredging.
But if
That's
you,
what the goal would be.
but if you don't dredge, you don't have to do a shellfish study. Yeah.
And just while I'm thinking about it, if you don't mind, in front of that bulkhead, they call for some 8-inch piles.
oh, okay.
So, you know, even cutting them off, I don't think is gonna benefit the install of the job. And where you have all the material, equipment on site to pull those out, might be simpler just to pull them out.
Right.
It-
Yeah, that was just one of their comments that I would agree with, but,
Yeah.
yeah, they say you should pull them instead of cutting them. So I guess the question would be, do you want to continue and, you know, bring the dredging project before us and do it that way, or do you want to come back with?
No, I think that, you know, if it's not too inconvenient for you guys, I'd prefer to just continue, have a discussion with Continental Marine to see what they really want to do there, let them know what their obligation would be when they decide to go dredging, and let them make that an informed decision on it, as opposed to just saying, this is what we'd like you to do. So I would, you know, I prefer probably continue for 2 weeks. I mean, the rest of it is, if they say no dredging, then we really haven't lost much other than gain some clarity on things.
And Josh, you'll share that DMF document with us when you have a chance.
Yes, I will.
Okay. Is there anybody online or in the audience who would like to comment on this project? So that you will go back to the owner and speak to him about the dredging versus using new material.
Yeah.
All right. So, 2 weeks?
2 weeks should do it, and if they decide they want to go forward with it, and we are going to go with a modified plan, I'll just continue again.
Because it will take more than 2 weeks to get
Yes.
comments. May what, Josh, the next meeting?
It's May 1st, I think.
Next meeting is May 1st.
A motion to continue until May 1st?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 600. You're continued until May 1st.
Okay, thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Okay. Continued hearings. We have a continued hearing for Nicole Norris, 25 Bayview Street, an RDA construction of a sunroof patio and outdoor shower. Anybody here for that?
I guess I can briefly speak to this one. So when we left the meeting, our last meeting, we sent them away to amend the plans to include a dry well. I believe that was the only condition that the commission wanted to see for that. I have received revised plans with the dry well located on them. I'll share that on the screen now. So, on the screen, you can see that the dry well is now located in the back rear of the property. And the commission also had concerns about whether they should use, oh, no, hold on. Nope, that was it, just the plan for the position of the dry well, which we have received.
Okay, everybody comfortable with the modified plans?
Yeah.
It's a hearing. Any comments? Shall I ask if there's any questions? Okay, anybody in the audience or online like to comment on this project?
I think we voted on it.
Voted on this.
We did.
It was,
You put a -3 determination with dry wells, and then they just had to hand in.
That's why I can't find a folder.
They had to hand in just the updated.
Okay, so there's nothing to, no hearing, no discussion, no voting, and that's why I don't have a folder.
and I probably just left it on our agenda knowing that you guys wanted to know that there
Talk about
was a plan with a dry well received, so.
God, I am not with it tonight. I apologize.
No, that was a confusing way for me to address that. I should have probably put it under other business maybe, or
Okay.
just an update, so.
Because where's my folder? Okay, we have continued hearings. Prime Engineering, 37 County Road, wanted a continuance until April 17th.
Today.
I know.
That was at the last one. They requested a continuance today till May 15th.
Right, motion continued till May 15th.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, continue to May 15th. We have a hearing for Sandy Beach Association, Point Independence. It was continued until today. Anybody here for that?
So, they were mainly being continued because they haven't received a, Mass DEP file number. They just received it today, but they've requested a continuance to May 1st.
Motion continued to May 1st.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to continue until May 1st. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 600, continued. We have a David Darling. Anything happening? I don't have a,
You previously continued them to May 1st.
Motion continued till May 1st.
Second.
it's already been done. Okay, then we have the Jason Nelson 8 over Jordan Road. Anybody here for that?
So the next four, as you recall, are all from the same engineer. And as they are updating the plans, they've requested a continuance for all four of them to May 1st.
Okay, motion continued till May 1st. And do we have to go through all these separately or just?
We'll continue 8 over Jordan, 10 over Jordan, 4 over Jordan, and 172 Great Neck.
Second.
That's the motion to continue. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Wow. We then go on to enforcement. Is there anybody here for an enforcement order? If not, Josh, is it possible we can take the Marco Vista out of sequence?
Completely up to you.
Anybody? Oh. What did I say? Is there anybody objecting to take the Marco Vista conservation restriction discussion out of sequence? If not, anybody here would like to talk about, someone is here from the Land Trust that wants to talk about this. Who wants to come up? Somebody.
Kathy Papalardo, Fearing Hill Road, President of the Wareham Land Trust. The conservation restriction, I think many of you have been through this process before. The Land Trust does the draft, then it gets sent off for all of the local agencies, Josh to look at it, the selectmen, town council, Concom all have to look at it. We've all made our changes. Then from there, it gets sent to the state. The state goes through it, and that was a template because it was difficult to read because it's in track changes, which is how the state is doing it. So it then went to the state. the state goes through it. What you saw was a version that the state sent back with their comments that Elise then went through and was putting in, answering their questions. So for instance, they wanted the specifics, exactly where would the parking area be? What's the material gonna be? How big is it going to be? Several of them, there were a couple of typos. There wasn't anything substantive in there that's changing the conservation restriction. And it has to come back for you all to review again, obviously, because that's the process. We're going through this as partners through this. The town, the Wareham Land Trust, Town Council, Concom, you'll be holding the CR. We all have to agree with how it's written because that's what we're going to be upholding. So if you have specific questions about it,
Okay. And I understand the selectmen accepted the CR at
They
their
did-
meeting
they did
last night, yes.
They did, the only reason Elise isn't here tonight is she's across the street for the presentation over there.
Yes.
So I said,
Can't be
yes,
in two
I'll be
places.
at the
In
meeting.
case there's any questions.
Yes.
Okay, we received them. Anybody has a question now, we'll go around. Joe?
I have no questions.
Paula Jean?
No questions, thank you.
Autumn?
No questions, thank you.
Carol?
No questions, thank you.
Kwame?
No questions,
Michael?
thank you.
No questions, thanks.
Denise?
No questions.
My turn.
Uh-oh.
I noticed there was a section regarding the indigenous cultural practices,
Yes.
allow them to do their ceremonies on the land. I was questioned, was there anything about harvesting shellfish? Because it's my understanding an indigenous person can do shellfish any place along our waterways without permit.
I honestly don't know what the
Okay, I just,
rules are. I know they can do herring, because when you go to the herring run, there's the sign there that, you know,
Yeah,
you have
but-
to have a card as an indigenous person to take herring, because the rest of us can't. I
Okay.
don't know about the shellfish rules with indigenous. I do not know.
Okay, that's all right. One question I had was, it says minor recreational structures. It included boardwalks. I don't quite call that minor. Or this is just me. I have no other problem with it. I was just quite surprised to find a boardwalk was considered minor recreational structures, even though it is listed under trail features in an earlier section. I was surprised that it was just, but I have no other.
I think maybe because boardwalks, it's, you know, you're not having this big giant blueprint and putting up 4 walls, et cetera.
I don't know.
To be a minor.
Just like we expect a boardwalk to go from Merchant's Way to Tremont Nail. I would just think that's my idea of a boardwalk, but that's all right.
That would be a big one.
Yes. Okay, Josh, did you have any comments on the CR?
I have no comments, no.
I would like a motion to accept the conservation restriction for the Marks Cove Vista as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained? Conservation has approved it.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Now you people can go home.
You want us to leave?
No, you, okay. What's next on our plate is the enforcement orders.
So these are all enforcement orders that you guys already discussed about enforcing at our last meeting. So I guess they will just be continued items until we hear new information.
So we don't lose track of them.
Right. I would say the longest running one right now would be 4 Kennedy Street, and the application is working with an engineering company to come before the board and address those issues. So.
Okay. Minutes, we have March 2nd. It's my understanding, I thought we approved March 20th at our last meeting.
I thought we had.
And we just received April 3rd. I haven't had a chance to review it, so I believe March 20th has been done, and I think April 3rd can be continued on to our next meeting. We have a bylaw revision update. Town meeting is Monday at the town high school. That's a little bit different than what we've been used to the last couple town meetings. So Viking Drive High School, 7 o'clock Monday is when we'll do our annual and special spring town meeting, including our article. It will be, we will ask for time for our consultant to present our stand as to why we're submitting this article. It is in special spring, so it should be done pretty quickly, because there's not much special articles in special spring. Is there anything else, Josh, you would like to comment on?
Yep, just a couple things. So, the Indian Neck property that the commission had voted on accepting previously, it was a property that was accepted by the town a number of years ago, and it was never acted on, so we almost deemed it necessary for you guys to re-vote on it, which you guys had done. But when it was first voted on, I believe there was an amendment on town meeting floor for it to get a 21E site assessment done. They have since done that site assessment. It came back clean. And I guess this is more of just a notification for you guys. You don't have to take any action on it. But the 21E has come back, and the attorneys are drafting up a deed for the town to accept the
Will we
property.
hold a CR? Will there be a CR on this prop? The town will own the land. Are we going to have a CR or not bother? It is such a tiny little thing.
It's probably unbuildable for the most part.
It is quite wet.
It's quite wet. You know, there may be a discussion about expanding the road into that property a little bit at some point, if there was ever complete streets to go through there with a bike path or something. That may be something that's looked at. But again, that's future, potentially in the future. I have no information
And
about that.
I really would like to see the town accept it, becomes town property, and we won't see all those campaign signs on that corner anymore, because you can't put campaign signs on town property. Because right now, Mr. Deacon owns that corner, and it's been loaded with campaign signs, and they will be gone once the town owns it. But that's me. So we're just, thank you for the update.
Yep.
We're one step closer having the town accept it from Mr. Deacon.
Correct. Another thing that's not on your agenda, but I'll just mention, I'm working on getting educational materials for the commission that are more accessible to you guys. So you can look forward to that coming up. And then I would say the only other thing on our agenda would be, you know, the workshop of the DOA. So if you are so inclined to hear about that tonight, we can talk about it.
Oh, I think not. Next meeting's going to be a busy one, right?
I would say so. I would say that we have a lot of continuances, and I received quite a few applications, so yeah.
It's up to the committee. Do you want to have George talk to us about determination of applicability, or keep it on our agenda?
Get it over with.
Get it over with? It's,
Okay.
oh, whoa.
What time is it?
It's only 10 after 7?
The night is young.
I would love
Josh,
to-
are you prepared to do that tonight for us?
I will give you a 10,000-foot overview.
Oh, good, 10 minutes.
10 minutes, then, sure. Okay.
Anybody else subject to continuing, as Paula Jean says, get it over with? Because it's been on our agenda for a while, looking for a meeting that we were not gone past 8 o'clock. So,
I will say the workshop section of our agenda will potentially never be complete. 'Cause
That's
I
right,
guess-
you're gonna
I guess
continue to-
the next time we will talk about, I mean, if anyone wants to talk about anything specific, we can do that. But I think it's probably important, maybe we segue into notices of intent.
yes, I mean,
We'll go from there.
I'll let you determine what becomes on our agenda for the next training session you bring us all up to speed on.
Okay, so let's do a 10,000-foot overview of what you guys are actually approving when you approve a determination of applicability. So I'll share this on the screen. So there's general information, project location, applicant, property owner if different. This applicant, or this I guess, approval requires the date the request was filed, because the commission has, 21 days to make a determination unless there is a continuance. Continuances currently are addressed by technically the commission asking the applicant if they would like to continue. There are some things or provisions that you can put in the rules and regulations. For example, if we got any busier, you could have applicants waive the 21-day notice that, their project may not be heard in 21 days. I don't think we've really had an issue with getting people in within that time frame, but it is something that we can put in our rules and regulations. And, if, I think our bylaw currently states that if the commission feels that they don't have an adequate amount of information, you can continue the applicant. So those are just a couple things to note. But, okay, so with the determination, they require the description of the project, which is usually just a copy and paste from what they have described to us. And if there's any plans, those get approved in the paperwork as well. So moving on, so a positive determination is basically the commission saying that we think the project is going to affect the resource area and that you need to come back with some type of higher permitting, whether that be a notice of intent, abbreviated notice of intent, or so forth. And then it describes the reasons why you're issuing a positive determination. So the area depicted on the reference plans is an area subject to a notice of intent filing, would just be a positive 1. Positive 2 talks more about the actual delineation of the resource area. So if you went out and decided that you didn't like the wetland line, it would be appropriate to give a positive determination for a negative 2A or 2B.
Question, don't we give them a chance to change it? If we don't, if the line is in question? I mean, this is the bottom, this is the end of it, right? I mean, we looked at all options and asked them to correct or...
If they came before you with a set of plans and said, this is our wetland line, and you as a commission said, we don't really agree with flag number 5, we think it should be moved to the west 5 feet, whatever it may be. And they say, well, we disagree with your determination, and we're not going to do it.
And we can issue a positive at that time because we have a disagreement onto the wetland line.
Right, correct.
But we usually give them a chance to fix it.
Yeah, and I would say, most of the time, the fix is usually just me going out there and saying, hey, I'm not really comfortable with this flag. And, sometimes you don't even know that that's happening behind the scenes when I do a pre-walk with the applicant before they even file an application. I've gone out to sites with a wetland scientist and actually walked his line. And, we've made revisions to the flags before you guys even know the project is coming. But if you did disagree with, it would be a positive.
But we don't do many positives, do we?
No, I would say this commission
Most
doesn't.
everybody,
I have a question, though. If the line is determined, but we go out to a site and we notice that there's new wetland growth further in, does that come into play at all?
So,
Does that move the line automatically, or do we have to go out and, somebody have to go out and look at it?
so when you're defining a wetland line, what you do is, very overview of it. You look at the soils, you look at the wetland vegetation, and you look at the hydrology of the area. And normally what I would say is these lines aren't 100% accurate with vegetation, because there are wetland plants that can grow a little upland, and there are upland plants that can grow a little wetland. So I would say upland plants aren't always the best definer of a wetland line. I think you really need to look at the soils as well, for that reason. And, I can provide the commission with a list of plants that are useful for defining wetland lines.
I would like that.
Okay. I will,
Be great.
I can do that. But I would say the wetland line is more easily definable looking at soils than it is plants.
Because it's tough, and some of the times of the year, there aren't any leaves and stuff like, so you have to know what it looks like when it's winter, or,
Right.
Yeah. Winter delineation of plants is a lot harder. Okay, so going back to the issuance of positive determinations. So the work described is, within the jurisdiction or within the resource area. That just requires a filing of a notice of intent is number 3. So the work within the buffer zone, but has the potential to alter the resource area, is also something that you can deny a project for. I think you would very few and far between see a project that's issued in the buffer zone that would affect the resource area. Sometimes you have projects that could have a temporary effect on the resource area, i.e. Erosion of sediments into the resource area, but usually those are negated by an erosion control. And then number 5 is it doesn't work with provisions of our bylaw. Number 5 and number 6 are kind of similar, but numbers 5 and 6, I would say you would use if you felt that they didn't, they may adhere to the Wetlands Protection Act, but they don't adhere to the local bylaw. So that would be something that may become more widely used when we see the new floodplain regulations and when we actually identify a set of rules and regulations. And then number 7 is specifically to riverfront area and the 200-foot riverfront. Normally with riverfront work, it requires an alternatives analysis. And that's where you would really use a positive 7 determination because it's not technically within the buffer to a resource area. So then negative determinations. -1 is that this project is completely outside of your jurisdiction and would never have an impact on anything under the Wetlands Protection Act or your
And
bylaw.
the only time we get those, it's, I believe, planning board.
So the planning board in their rules and regulations say that if there's a site plan review before them, they want some type of determination from conservation.
So therefore, they come before us. Josh says it's not within our jurisdiction. We issue a -1 and planning's happy and we're out of the picture.
Right. And currently, the way that the zoning bylaws are written is that they get a determination from you. So either a DOA or an order of conditions. If the commission wants to look at this in the future, or I guess it would actually be up to the planning board, but they really could say that they just require a determination from whoever is sitting as the conservation administrator. So it might get to the point where you don't really see any of those.
May not come to us anymore.
Right, but again, I think your administrator could easily identify whether you have anything to do with it or not. So then a -2 is the work described in the request is within an area subject to jurisdiction, i.e. a buffer zone, or sometimes a wetland resource, but it's not going to affect that or alter that area in a detrimental way. And that's normally what you guys would approve a lot of things under is the -2. The -3 basically says the same thing, except you want to add some type of condition to it. My suggestion for the commission is if you're adding a condition to it, don't make it a condition that you feel you'll be enforcing in the future, because it's very hard to enforce conditions higher than us on an RDA.
There's no, the RDA doesn't have the power that the notice of conditions.
Right.
Yes.
If you were going to.
Consider it a suggestion, not a
Yeah.
requirement.
Yeah, I would say it's a 3-year suggestion. Because there are projects that you could condition for just the length of the project, which is 3 years, that, would fit into this, that may not need any enforcement. But if you're gonna do anything that's a continuing condition, I would say it definitely has to be within order of conditions. So number 4 is very similar to number 3, but it just talks about it being within the buffer zone as well, where number 1 just says it's, not within any of the area. Let's see, number 5. Here, it says the area described in the request is subject to jurisdiction under the Act, since the work described meets the requirements of the following exemptions. So, any list of the exemptions within a notice of intent can come to you as a notice of intent saying, here's our notice of intent, here's why we're exempt. Or they can bring it in with an RDA and say, it could be a notice of intent except we're exempt from that activity. So,
Example,
oh, this would be something like someone using an agricultural exemption for potentially filling a certain percentage of a cranberry bog.
or utilities.
Utilities actually don't meet the provisions of needing a filing at all.
At all.
They just require a notification to the municipality. So, yeah, there's few and far between that you'll be issuing a -5. A -6, so a lot of these, so the commission can issue a determination that is a -2, -6. And we've done that in the past. Really, it's not necessary unless we had, I would say, a separate form for our RDAs. So under the bylaw, when we create our rules and regulations, we'll probably look at creating separate forms for a lot of these applications. So the commission will see a notice of intent, and they'll probably see something that looks very similar to a notice of intent that we'll call something else. But that will be specifically for any increase in jurisdiction that the commission may or may not get approved at an upcoming town meeting, if that makes sense.
I had a tough one with that one.
If the commission increased its jurisdiction, it wouldn't be a requirement of the application to identify that in a notice of intent. They would have to identify that work in some other type of application. But it would look very similar to a notice of intent.
Okay.
I would say almost identical, without having Massachusetts on it in Wareham instead.
And how does that relate to the RDAs?
They can't hear you.
How does that relate to the RDAs?
How's that?
Does an RDA need a different form, or this needs a different form? Or
Right, your so your RDA would probably look a little different as well, but the DOA that you issue could very well be the exact same.
Okay.
I would say this would really only come into play if the commission, for a crazy example, created a 500-foot buffer off of a wetland. I would say that's very unlikely to happen, but the state wouldn't recognize a 500-foot buffer. So we would want to create some type of approval that, specified that we were speaking to our 500-foot buffer. And it probably wouldn't even, it would not be called the 500-foot buffer either. We would rename it into something else so that applicants wouldn't get confused with a buffer zone. Right. So moving on from that, you have the authorization, which is basically how it got delivered to the applicant. I have really not been mailing a lot of these out recently. I've been making applicants come in and get it on their own. So, when they come to pick it up, we date it, and that starts the appeal period for the project. The appeal period is 10 days, and normally, I would say 95% of your projects don't get appealed at all.
Now, if a project, if they want to start, they can and could risk the chance of having to undo it if it got appealed or questioned. I mean, there's nothing to say they can't start their project immediately, even though we make a recommendation they don't until you get the paperwork, but they could.
Yeah, and I would say most of the time, the 10-day appeal period doesn't affect a lot of your projects because they come to the commission, they get their order of conditions, and your standard order of conditions says something along the lines of, I need to inspect the erosion control before they do any work. So normally, they're past the 10 days before I even get out to inspect the erosion
Okay.
controls. But you're right, someone could start a project within that 10-day appeal period. They get appealed, and honestly, they could continue the work within the appeal period and risk that they lose their
And it is a
appeal.
risk.
And yeah, it's definitely a risk.
Because we had one project, they did it without the erosion control. And I'll wait to see when they come back for their certification, because it wasn't quite built the way it was supposed to. But it happens.
Yeah, I mean,
We've had somebody who, we approved it on Wednesday, and they did the project on Thursday.
yeah, and under.
That's why we keep saying nothing until they get the paperwork from you, so there's no misunderstanding as to,
Right, and not only that, but even if you guys issue an order of conditions at a hearing, the state doesn't recognize it until they've received a copy of it. And, for example, you guys approved hidden trails, was that at your last meeting, or maybe it was the meeting before? I'm sorry.
2 meetings ago.
I attend a lot of meetings now.
Yeah, yes, you do. 2 meetings ago.
So you approved hidden trails 2 meetings ago. The commission has 21 days to issue the order of conditions, and I just issued that today. So their appeal period starts today, because that's when I sent it to the state. But you can also, within your rules and regs, again, it hasn't been an issue, but you can always have an applicant sign a waiver saying that you might not get your approval within 21 days. I think if the commission became so busy that that was a problem, you would probably look at meeting weekly before you would ever put that waiver in place.
Bite
But
your tongue.
even, I would say even the busiest commissions in the state meet bi-monthly.
Yep.
So, but we'll see what happens when the new flood zone regulations come out. You are gonna get a lot busier with those regulations, because half of Wareham is gonna be underwater within the next 50 years, if their projections are correct.
If they're, yes.
Okay, so the next is the signature page. You guys are familiar with that. The appeals just talks about the appeals. And then this is the fee transmittal form that gets sent to the state. The state likes to know that we are getting paid. And then if there was an appeal to your decision of a DOA, they can appeal to the state for a superseding determination, it would be any of those.
Which is very uncommon in an RDA. It does happen in our notice of intent, but not, these, to me, I consider this for minor projects.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Your RDA is really a way for, I mean, the RDA is really you guys saying, is this project going to affect a resource area? And I think I don't think you guys are abusing the RDA for approving projects in any way. I think you've been using it appropriately. That may change when our rules and regulations come out, depending on how you want to view those, but I think you've been right in line with what's expected for an RDA.
But
I would say,
you determine whether or not an RDA or a notice is issued in your office. Because we don't sitting here saying one versus the other. I think that's on your shoulders, right?
I would say for, if someone came in and asked me which way the filing would go, that's when I would determine it. But, I mean, someone could bring a dock project to you guys under an RDA, and you would have to sit here and listen to it, and that's when you would determine that it's out of the scope of an RDA and they need
Then
a
it
notice
would
of
be a
intent.
positive.
Right, exactly. So I really try to, I would say I'm like a defenseman for what comes before the commission, and then you guys would be ultimately the goalie. So,
Notice it's a hockey reference.
lucky guy. But I think that, I'm a little over 10 minutes, but I think that was a good overview.
Thank you.
of-
Any questions?
No, do you have, or where do we get, if we wanted to just have blank samples of those to look it over again?
I mean, you can find them on Mass DEP's webpage, or you could ask me nicely and I could send it to you.
Are they not available
Option two.
on our webpage?
The applications are available on your webpage. The
Yes.
actual determinations are not.
Okay.
I don't think anyone other than professionals writing the approvals would have any reason to look at them, but
But the forms are available for anybody who wants to look at them on town's webpage.
On the state, I'll say the state,
State.
Mass DEP's webpage, and it's WPA Form 2.
Okay, anybody else? And we're at 7:30, anybody else? Okay,
Move to adjourn?
Second?
I have a motion and a second to adjourn at 7:31. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, thank you very much.
Thank you.